Eat meat with antibiotic-resistant germs on it? Nobody wants that. For this reason, fewer antibiotics should go into animals in the EU in the future. But plans to reserve certain substances, especially for humans, are now driving animal lovers on the barricades. And why? If my cat dies, you will die too. Such death threats are currently reaching the Green MEP Martin Häusling. At EU level, he advocates that 5 particularly affected groups of antibiotics are primarily reserved for humans in future and are only given to animals in exceptional cases. Sounds reasonable. His focus is on industrial animal husbandry, where massive amounts of antibiotics are given to chickens, pigs, and the like, despite the risk of resistance building up. But the current storm of indignation comes from dog and cat owners who fear for the life of their pets, as Häusling said. Behind this is a campaign by the Association of Practicing Veterinarians. They fear that pets will no longer be adequately treated with antibiotics in the future if Häusling is successful with his plans. On the other hand, signatures are collected online. On the pictures published for this, a sad-looking dog can be seen above the words, "My life is in danger." According to Häusling, the whole thing is a dishonest fake news campaign. They scare people who don't have to be afraid at all, he says. In the meantime, the petition platform change.org has provided the campaign with a warning banner which calls for people to study the topic in more detail before signing. But what exactly is going on? On Wednesday, the EU Parliament voted on a veto of Häusling and the Environment Committee. The results are expected today, but they're not in when I'm filming this. The veto is directed against a proposal by the EU Commission on the question of which criteria should be applied when selecting so-called reserve antibiotics. The proposals from Brussels are too vague for Häusling. Should his objection be accepted by Parliament, the EU Commission would be asked to put 5 antibiotic groups on the list of reserve antibiotics. Reserve antibiotics are drugs that are used for infectious diseases when normal antibiotics no longer work. The aim is to use these resources as restrictively as possible so as not to jeopardize their effectiveness through developing resistances. And the reason for this is the more an antibiotic is used, the more likely it is that pathogen subtypes will prevail that the drug cannot harm, that are resistant. And it is feared, according to the EU Commission, 33,000 people die every year in the EU because antibiotics no longer work on them. The resistances arise because too many antibiotics are used in humans but also in animal fattening. According to estimates, 66% of all antibiotics worldwide are used for farm animals and not for humans, explains Häusling. In fattening farms, even non-infected animals would be treated with antibiotics as standard via feed or water. It is true that the amount of antibiotics given to veterinarians has recently dropped significantly. But if a person is colonized with particularly frequent multi-resistant germs without developing symptoms, then in almost every 5th case, this is due to the transmission of animal foods. A Dutch model appreciates that. The Deutsche Umwelthilfe recently found antibiotic-resistant germs in almost every 3rd purchase of turkey meat at husbandry level 2 from Lidl and Aldi in a random test. Nevertheless, under no circumstances does he want animals to stop receiving reserve antibiotics in the future, emphasizes Häusling. In his veto, he demands that individual seriously ill animals can continue to be treated with the reserve antibiotics, including cats, dogs, or hamsters. But why do we have all this commotion then? If this were implemented in this way, 4 classes of active ingredients would be banned for veterinary medicine, says Heiko Färber, Managing Director of the Federal Association of Practicing Veterinarians. Martin Häusling speaks of exceptions for the treatment of individual animals. That sounds good, says Färber, but that is unrealistic, because for such exemptions, the veterinary drug ordinance, which has been laboriously negotiated for years, would have to be reopened, and there is no political will to do so. From his point of view, the basic point of view of veterinarians is, I'm there to treat sick animals, says Ferber, and he says, and for that I should have the best options available. If you take away certain active ingredients, the treatment may be worse. Some substances could possibly be replaced by older antibiotics, but in some cases this even has disadvantages with regard to the development of resistance. The association is backed by the National Research Platform for Zoonosis. They write in a statement that so far there has been no evidence that a blanket ban would have a substantial and lasting effect on the occurrence of resistance in human medicine. Therefore, such ban is disproportionate according to the Veterinary Association. Ultimately, the question is, as a veterinarian, can you treat sick animals adequately, or do you have to euthanize animals with certain diseases, says Ferber. Häusling vehemently contradicts this representation. It is not rocket science to write a sentence on exception rules for the treatment of individual animals in the ordinance. There are also good alternatives for most fabrics. Other countries, such as Denmark, demonstrated that it was possible to dispense with reserve antibiotics in cattle breeding. In addition, if this veto gets through, nothing will happen for the time being. No bans that come into force immediately and no dying animals. The EU Commission is initially only asked to submit new proposals. And ultimately, his veto could even play into the hands of the associations, because the EU Commission is not planning any exceptions for the treatment of individual animals as he is calling for. In the end, the association may fear more lucrative sources of income than animal life. After all, there are practices that generate 80% of their turnover with the sale of antibiotics for agriculture. The influential German Animal Welfare Association wants to support Häusling's proposal, but only if it has been clearly clarified that individual sick animals, whether in agriculture or at home, may continue to receive the funds. But there's one major point that didn't come up enough from my taste. Sorry for all, I love cats, and no, not so much cats, I'm allergic against them, but they are cuddly. And I love dogs, but if there is the question, saving humans or saving animals, the answer is so clear for me. So you can hate me now. I'll see you in my next video. Bis dann.